Why it was needed to set the Erdtree on fire just to teleport us into a floating dragon city? When this question occurred in my head, I first thought that there are some hidden connections between the Forge of the Giants and Farum Azula, because otherwise the transition feels almost arbitrary. But what if Marika, which is ultimately responsible for sending us there, is creating a path where burning the Erdtree leads to a destined death? Not to Farum Azula as a destination, but actually to Maliketh, the destined death. Let's start with the most visible problem. We defeat Morgoth, we climb up the steps inside the Erdtree sanctuary, we approach the entrance we've spent most of the game trying to reach, and the Erdtree refuses us. A solid wall of thorns blocks the doorway. Our journey suddenly stops being about collecting great runes or simply reaching Leyndell. We have physically arrived at the destination, and the destination is sealed. Melina gives us the solution: the mountaintops of the giants. So we leave Leyndell, cross the Forbidden Lands, ascend through the snow, walk across enormous chains, pass the corpses of giants, kill the fire giant, and finally reach the forge. Everything about that journey points toward fire. The forge dominates the mountain, the flame of ruin is still burning inside it. And Melina intends us to use the Forbidden Flame to burn the thorns blocking our path. Straightforward enough. But before we even light it, Anya tells us something much more specific. Burning the Erdtree requires special kindling, someone capable of envisioning the flame and leading us to the Rune of Death. Not leading us to the forge, we are already going there, leading us to the Rune of Death. Then Melina reinforces the same connection at the forge. The one who walks alongside flame will eventually meet the road of destined death. These two statements connect the flame directly to what happens afterward. That connection is important because nothing we can actually see on the mountaintops points toward Farum Azula. Look around the forge. There is no portal, no dragon shrine, no Beastmen architecture, no ancient bridge disappearing into the storm. The mountaintops tells a story about giants, fire, death, and Marika's war against them. Farum Azula looks completely different. Floating mausoleums, beastmen, ancient dragons, shattered temples, and a colossal storm tearing through the center. Geographically and architecturally, these places do not look like two halves of the transportation system. Yet the narrative connection between Flame and the Destined Death is explicit. That suggests we were looking for the wrong connection. The Forge doesn't need a special relationship with Farum Azula. It only needs a relationship with the next requirement in our journey, and that requirement is death. When Melina takes our hand, the Erdtree begins burning. Our Tarnished loses consciousness. Then we wake on broken stone beneath the storm of Farum Azula. At first, the obvious conclusion is that Melina transported us. She was standing there, she initiated the ritual. She can appear and disappear at sites of grace, and earlier she brings us to the round table hold. It fits. Until I removed Melina from the scene, because a Frenzied Flame wrote proves she is not required. And that means the real explanation has to be larger than the Melina itself. Once we're actually inside Farum Azula, the environment makes a mystery stranger. I expected some visual connection back to the mountaintops. Instead, almost everything here belongs to a different world. Dragons lie across ruined platforms. Beastmen patrol enormous temples. Pieces of walls and towers hang sideways above the clouds. Stone fragments spiral around a storm that seems to consume the entire city. The Forge is nowhere in this visual language. Neither are the giants. So, if the Elden Ring game wanted us to understand Farum Azula as a natural destination of the Flame of Ruin, it gives us surprisingly little environmental evidence for it. Then I noticed one important distinction. We don't actually need anything from Farum Azula. We need something from someone who happens to live there. Follow the mandatory path through the city, across the broken terraces, through the Dragon Temple, past the Gods Can Do, up toward the highest surviving structures. Every required step pushes us toward Maliketh. And Maliketh possesses Destined Death. Now the sequence becomes much clearer. The Erdtree is sealed by thorns, so we need the Flame of Ruin. We kindle the flame, but the process is not complete, so we need the Rune of Death. We defeat Maliketh, release Destined Death, and only then does the burning of the Erdtree reach its catastrophic conclusion. Fire starts the job, death finishes it. That is why I don't think Farum Azula itself explains our arrival. If Maliketh were hidden beneath Leyndell, the road would need to take us beneath Leyndell. If he was imprisoned in the mountaintops, we would have no reason to leave the mountaintops. Farum Azula has no obvious direct connection to the Destined Death, beyond being the place where Maliketh resides. Farum Azula coordinates, Maliketh is a destination. And that brings Marika into the problem. She is the reason Maliketh possesses Destined Death in the first place. The Rune of Death was removed from the Golden Order and entrusted to her shadow. Maliketh became its guardian. Now look at the road we were following. Melina says her purpose was given to her by her mother inside the Erdtree. She leads us toward the Forbidden Flame. Anya tells us that the required kindling can lead us onward to the Rune of Death, and once the flame is kindled, we arrive in the one place where Marika's shadow is guarding it. That doesn't prove Marika personally activates the transportation. It suggests something more important. She arranged the pieces. Melina, the flame, Maliketh, Destined Death. Our journey simply connects them. Considering all of this, the bizarre jump from the Forge to Farum Azula is not bizarre at all. We are moving from one necessary stage of Marika's broken order to the next. Except there is a serious problem with that reading, because the game lets us destroy Melina's role in this sequence completely, and Farum Azula still takes us. This is where the theory almost falls apart. Take the Frenzied Flame beneath Leyndell. Melina warns us against it. Ignore her. Accept the 3 fingers. And Melina abandons us. Now reach the Forge. The normal sequence cannot happen. Melina isn't there to sacrifice herself. She doesn't take our hand, she doesn't become kindling. We do. And after the Erdtree catches fire, we still wake in Farum Azula. Same location, same path, same destination. So the simple explanation, Melina teleports us to Maliketh, doesn't work. She may be involved in the normal version of the ritual, but she cannot be necessary for the jump itself. There are interpretations that give Melina responsibility in the normal road, but they need a completely different magical explanation when the Frenzied Flame replaces her. Another suggests that activating the forge itself may somehow allow passage. A second alternative explanation is better as for me. Maybe nobody sends us. Maybe kindling the flame automatically leads its bearer toward Destined Death. Anya's dialogue could support that. Melina's final statement could support it. We have flame on one side, sealed death on the other, and some unexplained metaphysical connection between them. But we have to be careful here. The Elden Ring lore never explains us how the teleportation works. There is no item description explaining a gateway inside the forge. No dialogue says Marika opens a portal. No confirmed rule says the Flame of Ruin automatically transports its kindling to Maliketh. The mechanism remains unresolved. But the Frenzied Flame road proves something extremely useful. The person performing the transportation and the person responsible for the destination do not have to be the same. And once you separate those two questions, Marika's role becomes much harder to dismiss. I'm not arguing that Marika literally teleports our body from the forge. I'm arguing that Marika created the conditions that make our arrival at Maliketh necessary. Look at the journey as a sequence of obstacles rather than a sequence of maps. We need access to the Erdtree. The thorns prevent it. We need the Flame of Ruin. The flame begins burning the Erdtree. But Destined Death remains sealed. We need Maliketh. Maliketh falls. Death is released. Only then can the Erdtree truly burn and our path reopen. And Marika stands behind the crucial arrangement. She removed Destined Death from the Order. She entrusted it to Maliketh. Her shadow became the keeper of the exact thing our journey eventually requires. That is why the Frenzied Flame doesn't actually break the thesis. The Frenzied Flame changes who becomes kindling. It doesn't change what the Burning Erdtree needs afterward. We can reject Melina completely. We can pursue an ending opposed to the Golden Order. We can arrive at the Forge for entirely different reasons. But Maliketh is still waiting at the end of the next mandatory area. Our beliefs change. The lock doesn't. And that makes Melina's language much more revealing. She doesn't say that whoever walks alongside her will reach Farum Azula. She connects flame with the road of Destined Death. Anya does the same thing from another angle. The special kindling can lead us to the Rune of Death. This can be interpreted as an immediate connection between the Forge and the next stage of our journey, even while acknowledging that Farum Azula itself is almost incidental. That is the refrain. We keep trying to explain the geography. The game is explaining the objective. There may be no meaningful ancient relationship between the Forge of Giants and the floating ruins of Farum Azula at all. There doesn't need to be. The connection is between the thing burning the Erdtree and the thing preventing death from completing that destruction. Flame, then death. And Marika places death in Maliketh's hands. So when the Forge sends us onward, whatever the actual mechanism may be, it sends us into a problem Marika created long before our Tarnished ever woke in Limgrave, which makes Farum Azula feel less like a teleportation accident and more like a trap closing around Maliketh. Thanks for watching, hit that like button and subscribe for more Elden Ring and other Souls-like games lore and guide videos, and stay sharp out there, Tarnished.